Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good break. In the creator economy, brands aren't just selling products, they're building movements. And our next guest is an expert at making that happen. I'm excited to welcome Grace Andrews, brand director at Flight Story Studio. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you. Should I sit in this one? Okay. Nice and close. Hi.
So, Grace, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your journey with your work?
Yeah, of course. I'm Grace Andrews. I am a brand director and a creator. So I always say I get to see both sides of the coin. I get to be a creator who receives briefs, works with brand partners, works with all these brands and sees it from that side of things. I'm also a brand director, so I own the marketing budget and I work from that perspective. I often work with creators and I get to see this sort of very unique insight where I guess see both sides. And I've been working sort of at the Diary of a CEO and Flight Story for nearly 5 years. Hire number 2, so started when the Diary of a CEO had 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. We've just hit 11 million, so there's been a fair scaling up that's happened in that time. And I've been learning along the way. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
So can you tell me, what's your approach to building brands that don't just inform, but truly resonate and inspire people?
Yeah, big question. I always say that a brand narrative does just that. It informs. So a brand narrative, like a good brand narrative, your audience might be able to recite it, they might remember it. But a great brand story is felt. And I think the thing that I see so often brands getting wrong is they don't take the time to develop the audience insight enough to create that emotional resonance that's needed to establish that feeling. Like, that's where I see a lot of brands getting things wrong. I think a great brand story is really something that you feel. And if you don't understand who your audience are on a really deep level, you're never going to be able to create that feeling. So I don't just mean like taking a look at your demographics and understanding your male-female split or the age bracket that seems to be dominating. I mean like deeply understanding who your audience are, what they care about, where they show up, what other conversations they're having online, offline, what physical spaces they're hanging out in, what online spaces they're hanging out in, and spending time in that phase. We're so desperate to skip to execution and skip to results that we don't spend time in the bit that I actually think matters the most, which is deeply, deeply understanding your audience and not who you think your audience are either. Something I call an audience gap is who brands think they're speaking to as opposed to who they're actually speaking to. And often we think we're speaking to one and wondering why our messaging and our content isn't landing. It's because they're not your audience at all. So spending time actually understanding who they are is what will allow you to build the trust, the feeling of what will evolve into a great, great brand story. So that's the difference for me.
So I guess you've touched on it, but how do brands move beyond that transactional marketing to build that kind of connection and relationship with their customers?
I think what you've got to do in 2025 is build the infrastructure that allows your audience that will evolve into a community to come on the journey with you. So rather than delivering the output, bring them on the journey of the input. And I don't just, again, mean putting a poll up on your Instagram stories and going, hey, we're going to bring out a new product, green or blue, but you've already made the decision anyway. I mean actually building the processes and infrastructure that allows them to contribute to product development in a way that makes them feel part of the journey. Because, oh my goodness, your biggest advocates for the marketing that's going to do the marketing itself is a customer who has helped you produce that product. They're going to spread the message like wildfire, like word of mouth, and ultimately they're your ideal end consumer as well. So if they're the ones who are also doing your marketing, the ripple effect is going to be huge. So for me, moving beyond transaction is all about taking that audience on the journey with you and like seriously bringing them on the journey and then building the infrastructure to reward them as well. Reward them for being part of the journey. Don't just expect, it's not a one-way street. Reward them, incentivize them, thank them, and create that two-way stream of communication, which I'm sure we'll go on to speak about community.
Yeah, so community is a big buzzword, but what does community-driven growth actually look like in practice?
It's so funny that we say community is a buzzword because it's the most fundamental part of brand building in 2025, but everyone is so hooked or caught up on the word because it's what we're seeing the successful brands doing. So we're seeing successful brands build incredibly engaged communities that are not only reducing the cost of acquisition of a customer, but also increasing the lifetime value of the customer. So you've got all of these CMOs or these C-suites being like, well, we've got to build a community then. Community, build a community. We need a community executive and we need a community. But what they're actually seeing is the tip of the iceberg, of course. They're not seeing all of the long-term graph that it's taken to build what's now come above the surface, which is the result of that community. Community doesn't happen overnight. Community is the long-term game. I always say in your content game, virality is like a sugar rush. It's your sugar hit. It's the chocolate bar when you need to pick me up. It's the thing that has very, very, it's going to spike all those feelings of dopamine, and it's going to give you that adrenaline rush, but it's going to be short-lived and it's not going to last very long. And then in a couple of hours, you're going to be wondering, how can I get a bit more of that? Where's it gone? Why has it all gone really quiet? Why has that feeling all come down? And a community build is like your nutritious, balanced meal. It's the thing that's going to keep you sustained all day and longer. It gives you everything you need to create longevity within yourself, and therefore the analogy being your brand. So I think when it comes to community, we've really got to, if there's one thing to think about it as a buzzword, and I really don't think that's the right approach. The real approach is understanding that community has evolved because people are absolutely craving connection. They're craving connection in every area of their lives. So whether it's through the creators they follow or through the brands they eventually buy from, they need to feel connected to that product. Mainly because we have so much choice, instantaneous choice at our fingertips. You only have to scroll on TikTok for 5 seconds to be given 4 different options to buy something from TikTok Shop. We have options to buy at our fingertips. But the thing that keeps people coming back is that connection to the brand beyond the product. As I said, we have so many choices every single day to purchase. And the differing factor of why I come back to a brand or why your audience are coming back to a brand is because of the shared value connection they feel between you and what you're creating. So community is all about that. It's about that shared value trust system. And what it means is you need to start getting a little bit vulnerable in your content, or you need to start creating that narrative that allows your values to come through, because the value point is where the connection is built, not in the product. Ultimately, the connection is built through who you are, your why, your story, and that's where the longevity of community comes about. And ultimately, community is about creating a group of people with shared values. That's the definition. It's people around a shared value. So if you find what those values are for you and your brand and start seeding it into your content, suddenly you're going to have people who are there because of the values, who then happen to buy the product, which is what the best brands are mastering at the moment.
Can you take us back to your journey with the Diary of the CEO? Because when you first joined, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 80,000 subscribers on YouTube.
8,000.
8,000. And now there's over 10 million. Am I right?
You're right.
So what was your journey from the start to now in building that community?
Do you know what's really funny is we've built this audience of across platform over 20 million. There are 50 million views a month happening just on the long form podcast, and hundreds of millions across everything else. And we only this year, in fact very recently, have started taking community really seriously, because I think all of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, can't say we built a community. I think we've built an audience. And the reason I say that is because there are a few factors that would take an audience to a community. And one is they require a place to belong. And we haven't created that space. We've created one-way stream of communication across our platforms where we put out content and there are comment sections that allow replies. But for a community to really exist and for a community to thrive, one, it's got to exist without you. It's got to be able to have conversations there without you placing content in the middle of it. And secondly, it's got to be a two-way stream of communication. Thirdly, you need a place to belong. So when if we're being really honest with ourselves, I don't think until very recently, where we built sort of a subscription platform with a closed community space to it, we have built a community. I think we have every opportunity and possibility to do it because we've really, really built an audience who deeply, deeply care about the content and the values and what we're sharing and what we're putting out, and they resonate deeply with the brand. So we have the opportunity to create an incredible community at this point. But I think we haven't done a good enough job of bringing them through the only funnel that I still think exists, which is the community funnel.
Okay. So storytelling, moving on from that to storytelling, which is a big, big part of the whole picture, the broader picture. So often gets put into the same box as advertising, but you've said it's so much more than that. So can you talk a little bit about how storytelling can be used to build that trust and connection with community, but then also stay authentic?
Yeah,
authentic. Sorry, big question.
No, it's fine. Authentic, another like big buzzword that everyone wants to be authentic, which is a really bizarre concept because trying to be authentic is inauthentic in itself. If you are fully authentic, you are yourself, which shouldn't be something you have to try to do. So it's that for me is the ultimate buzzword, and the word I would love to see being used less and less. But to your main point about storytelling, the reason I'm so passionate, if anyone sort of asks me truly what I do, is I love to tell stories. My background is actually in journalism. I love to be the first to break the story. I love to craft the story. I love to tell a story in a way that really resonates with that particular audience. Like, that's what I'm super passionate about. And the reason I am is because it does enable that connection, but also your story is, despite what your playbook or your brand guidelines say, like, your story is actually your USP. In a world where there are so many versions of the same thing, if we're being totally honest, I'm sure there are people here who work for brands who, if you Google it, there are like multiple different options that people could go for. Your story is, like, really is your USP in that point of connection that allows that connection to start and allows that connection to thrive. So for me, I mean, I'm biased because I think stories are so wonderful, and the way we communicate and tell stories is so powerful. And for some, it means different things for different people. For some people, it's an escapism, a form of escape. For some people, it's a source of community. For some people, it's just how they live their lives. And I think if we're able to get storytelling right, everything else sort of falls into place. And I don't think people spend enough time either really, really nailing their story. I know you had one of our brands that came through Dragon's Den, Perfect Ted, were on the stage earlier with Levi. They've nailed their story, and I truly believe that is why last week they were announced as the fastest growing founder-led brand in the UK. He was probably way too humble to say that. But it really is the differentiating factor between those who are good and those who connect on an incredibly deep level. And that's where I guess everyone's saying authentic, and we want to be authentic. Your story is your authenticity. So if you're able to share that story regularly through all your different touch points, I'm not just talking one video with the founder who sits down with a mic on and says, this is our story. I mean the story that comes through when I click on your website, when I search for your brand, when I receive an email from your business in the subject line. I mean at every touch point where I can consume your business, I need to feel a sense of who you are and your story. And those are the brands that I think are going to be here for a long time.
So what are the most powerful principles from the creator economy that brands should be applying, right now?
So one of my mantras is that I would really love brands to start acting more like creators in terms of creating content like them, and for creators to start thinking like brands in terms of business opportunities with the audience they've built. So in terms of learning from the creator economy, creators are fantastic at capturing your attention. I also think creators are really set on their story, and creators understand the nuances of the platforms that they're on in a way that I don't think, I think in some ways like brands are lagging on because it's not priority. A creator's longevity and livelihood and career is sat within those third-party platforms. They have to know them like the back of their hand. It's why I think we're seeing this really interesting thing happen where brands are starting to bring creators in-house, because there's no one, truly no one, who understands how a platform works, like a creator whose entire livelihood is spent or is a result of what happens on those platforms. So they understand the new waves of platform changes, how the algorithm's sitting that week, the trends before they emerge on the trending platforms. They're living and breathing this thing. So for me, I think it's a really interesting moment where we're seeing creators come in-house to brands. But I think what they do well is attention. And attention is the most valuable currency in 2025. We are all desperate to capture attention. And when we look at, I don't know if anyone saw the reports that have come out from Boston Consulting Group recently, where they're talking about the move from a marketing funnel, which I think we all know died quite a long time ago, to sort of maps of influence, and how it's all about the moments where we can gather attention along a consumer's journey before they make a purchase decision. That's where I think it starts to get really interesting for brands to think a bit more like creators, because you've got to be able to meet your audience where they are and capture attention in a way that makes them stay. And brands are still, I think I sat on this stage last year and I had a viral video because I told brands not to post product photos. And it didn't go down well with some communities. And now, a year later, people are like, oh yeah, I guess it doesn't make sense for us to just keep plastering our social media platforms like they're e-magazines or like they're our website, because they serve a different purpose. And every single platform has its nuances, but I can promise you no one on those platforms is going on to be sold to. They're going for escape, they're going for entertainment, and they're going for probably connection or relief. If that happens to be a touch point in their journey of influencers purchasing a product, which it probably is, great. But they're not seeing your product photo and making a decision on the back of that. So I think when I talk about creators, like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really deeply understanding the platform nuances, understanding how to capture attention in a way that brands are still figuring out or businesses are still figuring out. And that vulnerability, like that, the way creators show up and it's a bit messy, and they say about things that have gone wrong, and they take you on the journey, and it's not all polished, and it's not all crisp, and it's not all been through 50 million rounds of amends before it gets to go up on social. It's a bit raw and it's a bit vulnerable, and I think brands would do well to do a little bit more of that.
You've championed the idea of marketing with and not at. So what does that look like in action?
So marketing with is kind of what we were speaking to a little bit before, which is bring them on the journey. Don't show them the outcome, show them the input and how you got there. So what I mean by that is, if you are building a product, long gone are the days of something's coming and then the next day launch and then the next day crossing our fingers and hoping someone purchases. That's not how it works anymore, because people want to understand the process, how you got there, what emotional decision-making went into that, how many members of your community did you bring into making that decision on that product, et cetera, et cetera. They need more, because that's what we're getting from everyone else at every other stage of our journey. We're getting more. So they want to know the behind the scenes and they want to feel connected. So rather than showing up at the last minute and going, here we are, here's our shiny product, tell me the 3 ways it went wrong. Because I've seen that play out many times where that sells far more products than when you tell me what went right. Show me what happened on the journey that made a mistake, or the production line went wrong, or the Shopify account went down, or there was a glitch in the system and everyone got free delivery for 24 hours. That's, one, it's a bit entertaining, which is the #1 form of creating connection on social media. But secondly, it shows that you're like real and human and you've taken me on the journey with you. And ultimately, if we go back to like the oldest adage in the book, people buy from people. They want to feel like there's a human on the other end of that screen who's made decisions that have gone wrong too, or that, things aren't always perfect as they seem. And I think that's why we've seen the success of founder-led brands in the recent years. We've seen these booming sort of companies that have been able to scale so much quicker than, your average e-commerce companies. I mean, Perfect Head being one of them, or Muse and all these other businesses as well, Tala, Grace Beverley's brand. It's because they were able to fast-track that connection build, because they brought people on the human journey that they could do because they were a human. They were a face. Rather than trying to sell from a business, they sold from a human. And it's no surprise that we're seeing this like continuous spike of founder-led businesses, because it just skips that like really hard part, which is communicating and building connection, because we're far more likely to engage if a human face is on the other side of the screen. So when I say marketing with, it's bringing them on the journey, allowing them to actually make decisions, not just say it, build infrastructure that rewards, and on that, like, allowing your community to market the product and reward it. So there are amazing brands and businesses, I'm sure, being spoken about here already. I know Social Tip just launched last week, which is allowing your regular consumer, not a creator, not an influencer, your regular audience member who shouts out about your brand, being able to tip them through this app. So that was James Watt Brewdog's app that launched a couple of weeks ago. So really, people are leaning into this. Like, they are really leaning into being able to reward a community in a really meaningful way, because the results are there. We're not sort of guessing anymore. All the reports, the data, the stats show that the lifetime value of the customer significantly increases. It's why this year we're seeing, for the first time, I think in the last sort of 4 years, the big brands with the big marketing budgets, like the CMOs waking up and going, oh, okay, the results are there now. Now we can do community. And actually, starting the build now puts you behind. The ones who started 3-4 years ago are absolutely soaring. You only have to look to, I mean, beauty and fashion are always at the forefront, in my opinion, of trends and things that are happening. But the beauty brands in the UK are absolutely killing community right now. I mean, Refi just launched their hotel yesterday, which is basically a beauty product hotel based around the community. And their numbers are crazy. And, you know, we see it everywhere. We've just seen one of the heads of community from Refi move over to Adenola. I mean, the big hub in Manchester, it seems to be where it's all happening. But it's incredible starting to see this play out in what we've known to be true for a long time, play out through the budgets. And when you know it's happening in the budgets, you're like, okay, all the boards have all gone on board finally, so it's actually happening. And that's what I think is really interesting.
Great, thank you, Grace. I want to put it to the audience now, so if you've got any questions for Grace, then please put your hand up.
Crickets.
Any questions for Grace? Don't be shy. Raise your hands. All right, let's continue with that discussion.
Well, I've actually got a question. So you've worked with many brands that have come through the Dragon's Den investments with Stephen Bartlett. Can you share a few examples of how you've helped shape the strategy around those?
Yes. I'm like, what can I share? Yeah, so I guess the Dragon's Den process is really interesting, because I think after they go on the show, a lot of people don't necessarily know what happens to like the brands or businesses. But the reality is once they've received investment from a dragon, often the team behind or who work alongside the dragon will play a varying role, but sometimes a fairly substantial role in delivering on the promise from the dragon. So Stephen is I don't know what they call him. They all have like sidekick, like superhero names in Dragon's Den, but he's the content or marketing or social media guru or whatever they call him. So I've had the pleasure as sort of his originally social media manager and now brand director of being able to spend time with those brands and really get sort of into the nitty-gritty of sometimes these like one-person founder-led businesses, like super small businesses. I mean, we started working with Perfect Ted as soon as they came out of the Den 2.5 years ago, and they were a team of 4. And now they're in our office and they occupy a floor, and I think they're coming up to 30, 40 people maybe. So it really is amazing to get to be on that journey at the very beginning. And it's everything. It's when you're a one-man band, you don't know what you don't know, you know? And you need, I think the naivety is a superpower, but also you need people going, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this? And building that community of other like-minded founders as well. So we'll do everything. We'll look at their social strategy. We'll talk about all the channels they're using. We'll see what their creator strategy is like, their influencer strategy. I've helped hire social media teams for their teams. So really is a little bit of everything. I'm trying to think of an example that would be super effective. We'll look at their e-commerce, and we'll understand how. Do you know what mostly it is? It's starting to build out those touch points. So I think when you're a small business, you're often looking at things in isolation. And you're like, yeah, we've got a newsletter set up, and yeah, we've got a podcast, and yes, we have social media channels. But if you went and listened to them all individually, it doesn't feel holistic, and there doesn't feel like a sense of connection between all those different areas of marketing. And their email or their website, I think we're so often, forget all these little things. And I'm obsessed with like brand worlds and brand universes and how you can bring that to life so it feels fully immersive when you step in to a retail shop or their website or anything. And a lot of what we'll do is touch points. So we'll go, okay, if I'm a consumer and never have discovered your brand before, what does my journey look like? And how do I uncover the values of the brand at every single touch point that I meet? So whether it is your sign-up journey, your landing page, your creators or your employees who might be posting about the brand, or your billboards or your in-real-life activations or your storefront or your abandoned basket chain, like whatever it is, does it really feel like you and your business and your brand? Because that's so often where we're seeing sort of, when we look at these maps of influence that I was talking about, that's where we're seeing the consumer journey like drop off because they don't feel connected at every single touch point. So I think that's a lot of the work that we've done, with the brands.
So if you were to give 3 pieces of advice to retailers out there, or entrepreneurs, or anyone sort of starting out, what would they be?
3 pieces of advice. I guess it would be a summary of everything we've spoken about. So to that last point, touch points. The marketing funnel is dead. If you are not looking at your touch points, you are leaving money on the table. Because that is, like, when we think about maps of influence, as I said, Boston Consulting Group's new diagrams for how consumers move along the journey to purchase, you are missing opportunities that could be solved very, very quickly. If you just sit down and see where every opportunity for a person to discover your business is, do they feel and sound like you? You've got to start there. The second one is spending time understanding who your audience actually are, not who you think they are. Like, who actually are your audience? Are we using sort of all the technology that currently exists to deeply understand that? And I'm talking far more than like sentiment analysis, like using AI and using technology to understand who they are, where they show up, and how you can infiltrate their habits. And then thirdly, I guess, don't forget that social media is there to be a bit messy and have fun with. It shouldn't be highly curated and highly polished. It should be a playground, and it should be explorative, and it should be a partnership between you and your customer and your community. It should not be a one-way stream of communication. It's got to work both ways. I think that would be it. And then obviously this big conversation's all been about community. So what are you doing to nurture your community? Is your content all for reach? Is it for sales? Is it for conversion? How much of it is it nurturing the people who are showing up for you every single day? And are you actually creating infrastructure to reward them? Like, are you actually rewarding your customer who's returning on a regular basis, in a way that other brands are, so that you can compete at that level? Because as I kind of said, the product obviously has to be fantastic. I'm sure all your products are fantastic. I'm not here to solve a product problem. I'm here to solve the reason people come back for product time and time again, which is community. So I think that's more than 3, but that's what I'd love to leave here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Any other questions in the audience?
Final chance for questions for Grace. Going once, going twice. Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you, Lavina.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.